So I'm down here coming up on the 4th of July weekend, and I'm down by the Trump Tower. He gets a lot of advertising, and it's good. It's his brand, I guess. You know, once he steps out of office, he's going to step back into the real estate business and build out his brand, I would assume, and build out his legacy. So, again, Chicago is kind of like Manhattan, and everybody tends to leave the city for Long Island and the Hamptons and so on to be by these water resorts. Here they go to the Lake of the Ozarks, the Channel Lakes, and what is that other place in Wisconsin that where my friend Jim Becker used to go? Oh, but again, they used to go up that way. But Chicago would get its surge because it had the 4th of July fireworks. So the merchants here and the hotels and that really relied on the big fireworks show when millions of people came down into the city, or 1 million people came down into the city, and they could rent hotels for the day. And that's when Chicago got the flood in from the suburbs. The people in the city that live here look to move out and away from the city. And before, how these merchants got a flood of business was the suburbs came to the city. That's why the suburbs have their fireworks on the 3rd of July originally, because they didn't compete with the city, which had their fireworks on the 4th of July. And so people would have their suburban fireworks, and then the next day they would either barbecue or come down into the city and watch the 4th of July fireworks. And usually they have the Chicago Symphony Orchestra who can play at Millennium Park and that, and they can set up portable speakers now and along the lakefront and that, and they should do this with the beaches now. First of all, for warnings and everything else, for lifeguards and that, they need to set out outdoor speaker systems at all the beaches and that, and along the lakefront, so they can, do these things where you can come to the lakefront and see the fireworks even all the way down, and listen to the music that might be played at Millennium Park in the band shell, and you can hear it all the way down in Hyde Park watching the fireworks. And so they need to build out a speaker system. And how do they do that? They just run the lines through the lighting system, which already goes through the lakefront, and they just run those speaker lines through the existing infrastructure. So there's room with inside, and this is what the city doesn't understand. If we shrink the wiring down, which we can exponentially for these poles, with inside of them you can run cable lines, you can run fiber optic lines. So it's already a wiring corridor. All this lighting system, from stoplights to street lights, they already created a massive wiring corridor, and you can use that for fiber optics, cable, and running electrical as well. But if you can shrink down the existing power lines and create room and just use the navigational channel that already exists, you can set up the speaker system along the lakefront, and you can attach all the way down throughout the lake, all the way to Rogers Park. And they could be out on boats, and when you're shooting it on a barge in the center of the lake, which the fireworks should not be anywhere near the shore. They actually should move out to the pumping stations, and they can put barges out right next to the pumping stations. And there are, I think, 2 pumping stations, but that means you can see the fireworks from Chicago from Lake Forest all the way down through Hyde Park and that, because it's out there and everybody can see it beautifully from the lakefront. And so they move it out to the pumping stations. They set up the barges there, and they do the fireworks show on the 4th of July, and they have 2 stations, and they can implement these barges at these 2 different stations, and they can synchronize them truly, and they coordinate them so they interact on a similar timeline, correlate it with the music, and you can have numerous pieces like Beyonce's song New York, New York. You could have a singer singing Chicago. I forget the different songs about the Windy City, but they can incorporate those different songs into it, and you can build out the speaker system through the lighting, and then you can have in the different parks and that, they can create incredible fidelity. You can work with Bose that does mini speakers and that they can basically do this, so you can have events in Grant Park and other places where there's already a preset speaker infrastructure that's tuned, and then you just overlay with Google and that, Google, Microsoft, overlay an atmospheric for the speakers. Speakers are dumb. Now make them smart. Even in venues and that, they have to scan the atmospheric dynamics so they can get the proper sound spectrum, so it can cut through the atmosphere and people can enjoy the show properly. And Chicago could be on the cutting edge. They could use ABT Electronics to build it out, and they could subcontract from ABT to build it out, and you have them testing the speaker systems. But they use the lighting system because all this is already existing, and you just upgrade the power lines that are there. Since you're going to put in all this new, you just upgrade and take out all that wiring, you bundle it up, you melt it down, and you sell it off as scrap metal. So that gives you a significant recapture, and that means you can upgrade these lighting systems into the logistical center for the city of Chicago and that. But also, they can make the parks and that incredibly beautiful, and if they want, they can put in camera grids at the same time as well. So, truly, so they can watch for safety purposes through the camera grids. So all the lighting infrastructure would have speakers and cameras. And they're using it for entertainment purposes, but secondly, it's safety purposes. And if you have to announce something in an area, like, some type of alert along the lakefront, you can. So use your existing infrastructure instead of tearing things up. Maximize what you have that's right in front of you. And so I'm going to go by the lakefront, and we'll go look at Museum Park and that. But it's a really easy upgrade. And, it can integrate with an overall artificial intelligence security system as well. And so, again, you can use it to move fiber optic lines and that, and like I said, camera and speaker systems, but just in general, it goes all through the city. So why invent new infrastructure when you can just leverage what's already created and you're in land preservation? Truly, you're thinking about optimizing, not carving up more land, but optimizing what you have so you can make it more beautiful. So why wouldn't you do that? Optimizing what you have. And again, this used to be the big thing for the 4th of July. And so the city was quiet for a few days, but on the 4th, it had its big day, and the merchants racked up a ton of cash on that day. So they had enough to get through the slow period. So it gave the employees a lot of change on a single day. And, you know, people work in the service industry and that. And like I said, they can integrate the hotels and that. You get a hotel. Check in, you know, you come down, you check in on the 4th, and then you go out to the fireworks. Then you stay out the 4th, and then you check out on the 5th. You're only renting for a day, but that fills all the hotels and, you know, their food kiosks and so on and so forth. So you make a lot of money in a short period of time. But it builds out everything in immense, you know, goodness. And now everything can be coordinated. Yeah, like you can do Open Table for the city. I know I keep on mentioning it, but it's a booking service. And if you want to use booking.com and they want to build out that way, then that's another booking service, right? So, again, people can reserve their spots, like I talked about the grid system for the beaches and everything. And you reserve your spot, and if you don't, then you still have to claim the spot through the app. So you still have to check in, but you're a last minute check-in. So you get what's ever available. So if it's standing room only or whatever, truly. So we're not in the past. Things can be coordinated so people can take their boats out on the lake and watch the fireworks show because they're out at the pumping stations. And so boats from all over can go out and just park in the lake all over the place and watch a beautiful, and then they can tune to WGN that will play the music and give some commentary on the fireworks at the same time. They can do it that way as well. So yeah, you can see it through the TV, but you can have TVs on your boat, and then you can pull up the WGN app while you're out, and you can see the fireworks through the phone as well, and they can do a replay and so on. And so you can use the WGN app, and you watch it live, and you can see it on the phone. So again, it gives you a close-up that you don't have, so you get to pick and choose between the view. And so the TV's not out because people are out of the house. So they can set up the app on the beach and that, and while they're out at the beach and that, they can just prop up the phone and watch WGN or watch Paramount, a movie or whatever, but I'm talking about the 4th of July right now. So again, they have to cut the cord, radio and TV stations. And now they can project through their apps. As I looked, Bloomberg app through YouTube. And so they could have a YouTube station like Bloomberg. And so they have to figure out how to cut the cord. That way, if you're on the bus and taking the bus, you put on a headphone and you can watch your own movie as you're riding along the bus or taking the train in the morning. And you can watch your movie. Truly, I used to watch that Blacklist at the gym when I was doing my cardio. I watched The Blacklist. I did Audible books. I watched Open Source when I was at the gym doing my cardio. Besides that, when I wasn't doing cardio, then I was listening to music. So, as I was going through my exercise. So again, this gives Spotify and everybody else their avenues. So you don't have to stick people in the house. And I'm not against the house. They integrated the phone with the TV where you can view things on the phone on the TV. And that's smart integration in that. So, you have to diversify and set people free and stop enslaving them. Truly. We got obesity and many other things because, you want to tie people to these systems, and it really causes problems. When you're playing your softball game in that, and you're supposed to be in softball leagues and soccer leagues and encouraging people to stay healthy, and if they stay healthy, more goes into consuming. So how much money do you want to spend on supplements and pharmaceuticals just to stay alive? Compared to other industries like going out and playing softball or playing in soccer, they want their time. So you want everybody to be crippled, and now there's no senior leagues, and they don't go out and they don't play pinochle anymore, or they don't go out and have chess leagues or anything. And I'm not saying, my brother used to play online chess. But the point is, enabling to, open these things up and allowing people to stay healthy, and you have to compete for their business and show how they can integrate it. And you have to set up commercials that say, okay, integrate it. Take me with this way. Take me with that way. You have to find your market. You don't enslave people. You find your natural market so we can find true equilibriums, so we don't get any bubbles, so things can stay naturally healthy. And that's the problem. When I was a kid, there was no discussion of diabetes at all. Zero, because people really weren't diabetic. As my mom walked both ways to work. She walked up Elston in freezing rain, snow, and she worked second shift, walked all the way to Baker's Life, walked all the way back, and then she got a bicycle and rode her bicycle. Now I'm afraid of e-bikes. I'm afraid of scooters. Before the scooter, you would pump the scooter, Or with skateboarding was great because you had the drive, the power by pushing. Now we have electric skateboards, we have electric bikes. Where the fuck is the exercise anymore? I mean, truly, you keep on backing out exercise. And that means you are blimpicizing everybody. I mean, truly, what do you think Mexico became the most obese country in the world? Because you keep on backing out physical exercise. I keep on trying to go to the gyms and you keep on terrorizing me at the gym. Or I try to go out and have peace and tranquility and you keep on terrorizing me. It's ridiculous. You know, I used to have friends, now I don't have any friends. So, for 10 years, the only thing I have to do to get out, because you took everything away, and then you constantly try to take driving away. I don't even have a couch. It's either I sit in my chair on my little nook and eat my food because you kicked me out of 100 plus restaurants. And I sit on my little thing and chair, and eventually, you know, it's not that comfortable, and I have to go to laying down in my bed. So most of the time when I'm home, I'm watching TV, laying down. So you keep on wanting to just lock me into the bed. You want to make me bedridden. I mean, isn't that fucking sick? I thought it. I tried to get all my clients out of the bed and healthy. The guy who wrote Spark, what did he do? Mind Body, he got all his people minimized their drugs or off the drugs and got them healthy and back into society. Don't we love Kim Basinger? She had massive phobia, and she got over the phobia, and she made all those movies. I can give you other people. She got over them. Donald Trump got over his phobia, and he had to shake hands and that. Doesn't mean he doesn't use hand sanitizer and can't put on a sanitizing layer that protects the skin. I showed you how to use different types of oil to put a protective barrier so you can shake people's hands and that would naturally, you know, kill any type of contamination. So, again, you can, you know, put those on. It doesn't mean you don't have to watch it. This is what I learned about hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer doesn't remove dirt. It kills germs. So you have to wash your hands. It minimizes the amount of times you need to wash your hands, but it builds up, and the dirt builds up, and you have to eventually wash your hands. So it doesn't take away hand washing. It just optimizes it so you don't have to constantly run to the sink to wash your hands. So we used it in the bar industry because we had to wash, and I had to wash all my glasses and everything. Whether I was here working at Joey Bono's or whatever, I was my own bar back. And so keeping my hands out of the water for a while kept my skin healthy. So using hand sanitizer kept my skin from, basically being over too long in the water, pruning, or what you want to say, too much moisture. Anyways, it's an optimization system. And so it's a trade-off. And so, again, these systems need to figure out how to optimize themselves. And they have to do this so they stay lean and mean and sharp, and we don't get atrophied and dumb. So even with me putting out stuff, you still have to do all the numbers, you still have to do all the work in that. So I'm not atrophying you. And you have to find the creativity to make those structures that I give you more efficient. So I'm not enslaving you. I'm not stopping your innovation or anything else. I'm giving you avenues that you can take and further optimize. That's what I do when I watch a YouTube video. I take their information and I further optimize it, keeping my mind healthy. So I'm down here, and you have Chinatown. The Chinese invented fireworks. You know that? That's where gunpowder and fireworks came from. And that's what the Chinese really used gunpowder for. They didn't use it to make war. We took it and noticed how bottle rockets went up and that, and then we're like, wow. So we can use it to propel things. And they're like, we can do this to create cannonballs and muskets. And the first musket was just a little round thing, and you put the powder in, and then the hammer hit the powder, ignited it, and then you had this little round ball that went out of the musket. Single shot, and then you had to open the bag of gunpowder, which you kept in. Look at this. Look at this shit. My ass. Violating the law. I laugh at this. They're supposed to enforce the law, not violate the law. They become a hypocrite. You are. And people don't respect the police. Hold it. You tell me you enforce the law? I just saw you tailgate. I saw you speeding. I saw you running red lights. There was no call. There was no emergency. And stopping at an intersection is good for the police. They can see around, check out the perimeter and everything. Truly. And they can watch and make sure everybody else is respecting the stoplights and the turn lights and everything else. But by blowing them, they teach everybody else they should do the same. It's just optional. But the funny thing is, remember when Rahm Emanuel, the Chicago Tribune, and him running all the stoplights? And then he said he didn't know he was running them. And they had all these red lights, things on him. And then what happened? He blamed it on his driver. Rahm said, I was in the back seat. I didn't know my driver was running the red lights. That was a bold-faced lie. But the mayor got socked for running red lights. If the mayor of Chicago can get socked and penalized and stop running red lights, then you think the Chicago police, who are subordinate to the mayor, would stop running red lights. So this is why I say this is what you do with the information that matters. Because the fireworks, the gunpowder was a source. And they saw it and they took it, and then they found it was ways to create dynamite and many other things to not help better, but to kill people more rapidly. And then they innovated up to the machine gun. Okay, I innovated things to make them more efficient, but my thing is to minimize collateral damage, to target evil, to eliminate evil quickly. They did things of mass destruction. Me, I like defined, well, not carpet bombing like we did in Cambodia and many other things, and we did in World War II, where most of that didn't hit the targets and it just killed massive amounts of civilians. So again, things were so inaccurate, it was unbelievable. But I was proud of the United States during the first Gulf War in that. They used laser-guided missiles and everything. Precision-guided ordnance. Hitting the air ducts and doing the right things. And minimizing any types of collateral damage. Only hurting those people that deserve to be hurt. That's what Schwarzkopf did. He sent out in the middle of the night all the Apache helicopters, and he might have used warthogs. I don't know, because warthogs are tank killers too. But he sent them out in the middle of the night to locate Saddam's tanks, which he had a ton. He had so much armor, it was ridiculous. And they would go out and hunt and destroy tanks. And he did that constantly. And yeah, they were running 24/7, but he did a lot of the tank killing at night. The point is, if you take out friendly fire, we had the least amount of casualties ever. And you say, oh, but Schwarzkopf wasn't good. That was a coalition force, unlike the second Gulf War, where it was not a overwhelming coalition. Schwarzkopf saved Turkish lives. He saved all those other partners. He saved so many lives in every country's military. It was incredible. He had the lowest casualties for that size of action in the history of war. Bringing down the casualties. And that's what he wanted to do. Using his information, using his systems. Truly, that's when they did the first stealth bomber. And all of that they used to bring down any casualties. And somehow we lose leadership like that, and we don't replace it with that kind of competency. And the military, the war on terror and that, we wasted General Petraeus and the surge, and he took over Mosul. And what happened? We pulled out the troops, and Mosul became an ISIS stronghold again. And then it took forever to cleanse Mosul because they booby-trapped everything on the way out. And they used incredible amounts of human shields. So, again, I'm looking to see down here, they're doing this stadium and the build-out. You know, Pacific Garden is right over here. And it can work with a placement firm. And they can place a lot of people. They need laborers. And they can place them, and they can go use work training credits and the state MAP grant since their financial need, and they can take 2-year courses or certifications or designations, and then they can go work for these construction companies that are doing this build out. And before the project ends, you have an exit strategy. Where are you going to redeploy them next? So they're building their skill base so they can build the career. So they can learn and mentor as plumbers and electricians and carpenters, and they can work in asphalt and concrete and steel and so on. You start as a laborer and you watch what's going on, as I did. I was a laborer for concrete work, for framing, for installing cabinets, plumbing, tile, you name it. And I started very young as a laborer. So again, you have this ability to use these things. I shouldn't get harassed, and I shouldn't get anyone. This guy's asking me. Not a penny. How about I give you my tens of thousands of dollars of bills because I need to pay my debtors? I don't owe you shit. In the Bible, they would kill you for asking. Oh, yes. No, the Bible would kill you, motherfucker, for asking. You're a piece of fucking shit. Get away from me. They would have your fucking head. Get away from me. Fucking deadbeat. Here's Pacific Garden. He can go right down here. In the Bible, as I told you, Chicago's the only place that asks you for money. In Los Angeles, New York, Arizona, you name it. They asked me for assistance to get out of their situation. They didn't ask me for fucking penny. In the Bible, they would be off with your head. You try to take anything from me, and you would be put to death. Here's Pacific Gardens, right here. So, Christ died for our sins. Now, Revelations, he needs to die for his fucking sins. Fucking pieces of shit. So they can work for this construction site. Every homeless person in the city of Chicago. Oh yeah, they need somebody at the gate to check in. 70-year-old guy can sit there like they do the greeters at Walmart. Right there, sitting at the gate, double checking the system. You still have a visual ID, you have a human. They still scan in and do the biometrics, but they also show the picture. It's just checks and balances, double check, redundancy. So some 70-year-old person can sit there and make sure that even if they have a badge, they might not be due on the site. Like, hey, bro, you're not scheduled today. They're not ready for you. No reason to overcrowd the site because you get people on the site that don't belong there. That creates more risk to the construction site. I'm like, you could have a badge and you're authorized, but you shouldn't be here today. So, sorry, you're not scheduled. Come back when you're scheduled. And you're scheduled for Tuesday at 10 a.m. See you then, man. Just-in-time logistics, just-in-time construction. They have to identify the curing time based on the weather patterns. Oh, you have to predict when you're going to take down the forms and everything else. So you need to understand the curing times. Like I put out the LA project. They use quicker curing times so they can move up the construction. So there wasn't because of the winter and they needed to... No. They wanted to complete the construction faster. So they found ways to create quicker curing cement. So it cured more instantly, not sacrificing quality. You can't trade off. You have to give the same type of quality. But you can put a catalyst, when exposed, it dries quicker. It quenches quicker. And then the forms can also apply pressure, which they don't do. And they're just stagnant, and you pour between these things, and then you pack it in. But they can upgrade that whole process. And the forms itself can be insulated. So, yeah. So it's like coming down here to a movie. And I get to watch all this, what you did to me. But there's no one acting upon him. So is it the heat? But you've been probing me constantly. And that makes you some sick motherfuckers. Because you're not doing it for my benefit. You fucked my life royal. You're sick motherfuckers. So again, where is the Department of Health? Again, the police can just say, hey, we need the Department of Health. Because coming down here, it seems like it's a freak show. The only thing I see is the homeless now. Supposedly. But it's funny how you drove me out of Urban Ministries and all of that. And, you know, stopping with doing the lunches and everything that I was doing with the Muslim charity and all the others. Interesting. But I share how I truly feel. And there shouldn't be any of this anymore. You got almost 20 years of prosperity since the downturn.